Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. In this video, we are going to discuss functions in Python. So here are the topics that you can see what are the topics that we are going to learn today. So in this video, we are going to discuss mainly what is functions and how to create functions and what is the different types of function we have in Python, right? And after that, we will see different use cases like how to use the function with the parameters, how to use the return keywords, and what is the use of keywords. And there are different type of scope of the variables, right? So these are the topics that we are going to cover in this today's particular video. I hope you guys going to learn something new. Okay? Yeah, let's start. So if I ask you what is function in Python, right? So far you must have seen that we have created some variables like if I say is equal to 10. So this is one variable I have created. This is my variable. This I have assigned the data, right? Similarly, we have created some list. Let's say a list equal to 1, 3, 4. So we created number of list, right? Similarly, we have created tuple also. Tuple is nothing but what is it is again it is a combination of data. You can see uh, we can see collection of data like similarly we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, right? Similarly, we have seen it and similarly we have seen the dictionary also, right? So all these things we have seen so far. Also, we have seen how to use the if-else and how to use, you can see, uh, the for loop, right? All these things we have seen already in our previous videos. Now we are going to discuss with what is function, right? So function here in Python, the function from this name itself you can understand it is talking about some work, right? So that means what is function? It does some work. Okay. So we can see function is something we perform some work, right? So we can say which perform some work, right? Which perform some work, right? So what do you mean by work, right? So let's say I have to do something. I have to calculate summation of two numbers. So in that case, I have to find out the result of summation of the two numbers. So that is my work, right? Your if I want to perform some multiplication operation, let's say I want to perform the multiplication of 3 by 10. Next time I'll be coming to the code and I need a multiplication of 555 into 1 2. What is the output is going to be? So every time, do I need to change my code? No, right? So if I want to change my code, then that is going to be difficult for me, right? So for those cases, for to perform some, you can say, repeated works, we create some function. So basically, what is function? It is function, or what is the purpose? We can see purpose of a function. What is the purpose of function? We can see to you can see reduce the reduce repeated code, right? We can see reducing repeated code repeat, or you can see repeated code, right? We can write once and we can use that function for multiple times, right? So function is something which is going to help you, or you can see it is a reusable code, right? Reusable code means you define it something and you can use it anywhere, right? So that is something for function is does for us, right? So we can achieve the reusability, or you can see we can achieve the repeated of code, right? That is the main purpose of using the function, right? Similarly, you can see we can achieve the what we can achieve. We can achieve the code organization, right? Organization, sorry, organization, organization of your code, right? So that is also where we can achieve from function, right? So these are the things that we can achieve from function. Uh, so now let's try to uh, talk about what is the, you can see. uh, different types of function we have available in Python, right? So if I see types of Python, types of function, let me scroll it down and I'll see types, types of function, right? So what are there are different types of function we have. So we can generally, we can see, we can categorize into two different type of function. One is your built-in function, built-in function. Another is your, you can see, user-defined function, right? User-defined, user-defined. So built-in function, what all are the function? Means the function which is already built in, right? By the Python developers, right? The Python, the who provide the Python, right? So built-in function like we already using some function like print, that is one of the built-in function, right? We are using len function to get length of a sequential type of data type, right? Similarly, there are a lot of functions which are built in, and we have already discussed on this built-in function, right? We have max function is there from mathematical perspective. We have mean function is there. So similarly, these are my built-in functions, and user-defined function is nothing but what you are going to create by yourself. So let's say I am going to create a function which is performing some addition of two numbers. So in that case, whatever the name I am going to provide of a function, that is going to be my user-defined function. I hope this concept is clear to you guys. Okay. Now, as you are clear now what is function and what are the different types of function, now let's talk about how to when we are going to create a function, right? What are the different type of, or you can see, syntax of a function, right? Now let's talk about the syntax of a function, right? So what is the syntax of function? So the syntax of a function is very straightforward and clear. It is like starting with the def keyword. There is a keyword we have to use, that is a def. Okay? So def is a keyword, and by using the def keyword, you have to provide your function name. So you will be providing the name of your function. Let's say function name. That is something that you are going to provide. This is your user defined name. And after that, it is mandatory to use a parenthesis, open and close parenthesis. This is mandatory. And after that, you'll be using the colon. This is also mandatory. Okay? So these are the things you have to use the def keyword, and after that, the name you are going to provide. Okay, and after that, you have to use the parenthesis, and you have to use the colon. Once you have hit enter, it will give you one space indentation. Let's say for two white space or four white space, right? And here you will be writing something for you. Let's see, I'm writing read something, right? So whatever you will be writing over here inside of this, that is going to be your function body, right? So this is nothing but a very simplest form of a function. But if you ask me, what is are the different type of content of a function, right? So if function can contain different type of, you can see, uh, different type of contents. Like you can see, we can create a function. Let me change the color. We can create a function with, let's say, I can create a function for tips, and I'm giving a name called ABC, and I'm creating a function. Here I can ask for the parameters, or I can ask for the arguments, right? So I can ask for the param, and we can display the parameter. And if you want, you can give some, you can say, doc string, right? What is the function is doing for you. So that in Python, what you can do, you can use immediately after your code, when your after your function declaration, immediately you can use within a triple quote, either it is a single triple quote or double triple quote, right? So within triple quote, you can write your doc string, what is this function is going to do. You can write it a single line of the function doxing, you can write multiple line of doxing. What is the function is doing, or whatever note you want to store, you want to provide for this particular function, you can write it over here, right? After that, you can write your code. Let's say I want to print something, right? So you can print. Let's say I want to print param, right? So that param you can pass over here. So it will print the param. After that, let's say you want to return something, right? So if you want to return, you can just simply use return. Uh, let's say I'm returning for now true, right? So this is something complete function looks like. So initially, the first line of code, it is something you have to start always using the def keyword, and once you start it always using the def keyword, then now you have to name pass the name of the function. Okay, and this is your you can say open and close parenthesis is mandatory, and all inside of this, if you need a parameter or you can say argument for your function, then use that parameter, right? Again, there are different type of parameters you can have that will be seeing in details in our uh, in later. But for now, let's focus on the very simplest form, right? And after that, this colon is important. And if you want, you can use the you can see doc strings over here and use the whatever the code you are going to write. And if you want to return something, so this is something how you can use the def function. Now, if you want to use that function that you have created, you can simply call this function with the function name. So what is the function name for us? That is ABC, right? So if you in the next line, if you want to use that function, so you can directly call ABC, and for calling the function, your parenthesis is important. Okay. So what is important over here? You have to use the parenthesis. Now, if your function is expecting you to pass a parameter, so you have to pass your argument also. Let's see, argument I am passing 10, right? Whatever the data. If you are not passing argument, but your function is expecting to you to pass a parameter, then you will be getting an error over here. Okay, your code will not get run. Okay, let us see this example in practical, right? Okay. So I'm taking you to the my Google Colab. There we'll be practicing this whatever we have talked so far right now. Let's see. I'm saying function in Python, and now let's say what is the syntax, right? We are going to talk about the syntax of a function. Let's say I'm directly creating a hello function, right? So I can say def um, grid. I can say grid, and here just this is the name of the function I have provided, and this is the parenthesis we have to mandatorily use, and after that I have to use the colon, right? After if you hit enter, you are getting an indentation. Can you see that we are getting two space indentation over here? You have to maintain that indentation. That is mandatory. Now, whatever the code you want to write over here for this function, you can write with the indentation, right? So I can say, let's say I want to say hello, hi. I can say hi, welcome to Python programming. Okay. So this is one of the function. If I run it now, you can see we are not going to get any output over here because what is the reason of the we are not going to get output? I'll tell you right now. See, the execution got successful completed, but we are not getting any output because until or unless, remember one thing, until or unless you are calling this particular function, the inside line of the function is not going to be executed. So in a particular file, you can have hundreds number of file, you can see methods written over here. I can write one another function like I can write, let's say I say if, and here I can write one another function, let's say display name, right? I am writing one another function called as display name, and here I'll be asking for the name of a function, and I will I'll print the name of the person. Okay, okay. I'll say f string. I'll be using f string. Hi, and I'll be displaying the name of the person, and I'll say welcome to the course, right? So this is something I have written another function. If I run this code now, you can see we are not getting any output at all, right? Because we did not call it. We just defined the function. We did not call it. Until unless you are calling the function, you are not going to get any output. Let's see. I'm going to call now. Let's say I'm going to call the grid method, right? Grid function. So what I can say, I can call the get function. If you just now call this get function, you can see we are getting this output, right? We are not getting the exact output that we are looking for. So remember one thing over here. When you are going to call a function, you have to use the braces also. Okay. Without that braces, you cannot call the function. You will not be able to get the expected result, right? Now, if I run this code now, you can see only the function that I have called over here, I am getting output from that function only, right? I did not get output from this function, right? So similarly, if I just call this name instead of greet, so, and let's say here it is expecting for a data to pass, but I am not passing any data. Let's see what happens. You see you are getting an error which is saying type error, and if you see the type of description, it is saying missing one required positional argument, which is name, right? So what that does mean? That means that this particular function display name is expecting me to pass a name, value of this particular name, right? So here, if you it is mandatory for you to use this function, you always have to pass the data. Here in this case, I did not I'm not expecting for any parameter to pass from the user, so I did not get the error. But for this case, I in this my function definition, I am expecting you to pass a data, right? So for that reason, we are getting an error. So let me pass. Let's see and see Saddam, right? So if I say Saddam, now you can see this is now passed to this particular method, which is the name is now replaced by this particular value. Or you can say alternately, you can say this variable is now containing this, or you can say referring this particular object. And when we are printing, this is now printing the data that we are passing from this particular function. Clear? Now we are getting the output hello, and here you can see the output we are getting. Right now, one more thing you can see over here in this code, I have two functions written, but we are getting output only for one. So the reason I have told you, until unless you are calling the function, you are not going to get any data, right? So again, also one more thing. Let's see. I'm saying how you can see ensure that reusability of the function, right? In the next line again, if you call this right, let's say I'm changing the name, right? I'm saying Alice, right? If I change the allies, now you can see it is printing with the allies, right? I do not have to make any changes in my code. Only the name that I want to use, I have to pass that through the function, so it will do my work, right? So similarly, in the next line, let's say I want to call this get function, right? So if I call this get function, you can see we are getting the output, right? So this is how you can create a function. You can call a function. You can pass you can say parameters to the function. Right. Now let's talk about function with multiple parameters or multiple arguments. Right. So, uh, okay. So what I'll do, I'll create another cell, and here we'll be working with the function with multiple parameters. Right. So you can say function with multiple parameters. Right. So let's say I can say function will be always start with the dev keyword, and I'll say display. I can say details, and here you can say name, and I say age, and say uh, city. Yeah, that's fine. And I want to display all the details of a particular user, right? So I can take this. I can see print. I'll be printing the name of the person, age of the person, city of the person, right? So if you execute this, my function is got defined. Now you can call this function anytime, anywhere, right? So I can call this name. Let's say I'm saying Alice and age is 25 and then New York, right? And similarly, I can call again it. I can call it again. So I can say details and I can say these are the details, right? So if you call this, right, you can see here we are getting the output. As it printed, the name is 25. Let me do a separator over here. So I'll be using the line separator with the window. Okay. Okay. So you can see here the first set of data, which is I am passing to this particular method, and it is printing me name, age, and city. And for the second set of data, this is the second set of data, and it's printing me the second set of data as well, right? Here, important thing is to notice that the sequence of the parameters we have used there in the function method, you can say function signature, is should be same. Let's see, what do I mean? Means the first parameter that I'm passing from this particular calling function and should be matching with the you can see the in the used function, right? So the second parameter here I'm passing as a 25 that is going to be assigned to the age. Third parameter I'm passing here to the in the calling function that is going to be assigned to the city. So here the sequence is going to be maintained, right? But what if I do not want to maintain the sequence, right? There's something called named parameter, right? So how to use that? Let's see. So here I can say, let's say display details. I'm going to call once again. Now here I can call them by with the parameter name. Let's say first I want to pass is equal to 30, right? After that I want to pass the city, right? I want to pass the city, and let's say I'm sitting passing as a Pune, right? And after that I want to pass another details. Let's say name. What is the name function? And the name function I am going to pass, let's say, Rohit, right? So here I can change the sequence of how you are going to pass the parameters. But if you are not using the named with the of the parameters, so you have to use the same sequence which is expecting by this particular function, right? So let's say I'm running this code. If I run, you can see we are getting correct output. There is no issue, right? But here I have changed the sequence of the parameters. If you want to change your sequence of the parameter, you have to use the name of the variable, whatever the data, what are the parameter data you are setting, right? I hope this is clear to you guys. Now, as you understand how to call this name parameter, these are something that we call as a name parameter. Let me write it over here. I can write it calling the name parameter. Right? So the name parameter, that is, this is how you can call the name parameter. Now there is one more thing is, let's say I do not want to always, what you if you don't pass three I names, right? So what I mean, let's say I do not want to pass. I do not want to pass three parameters at a time. I just want to pass two parameters. Or let's say I do not want to pass city, right? Or I do not want to pass the age. Then what will happen? You know that this particular function is always expecting me to pass three parameters, but I am going to pass a two parameter, right? Instead of three. Then what is going to happen? We are going to get a definite type error, right? And the reason you can see one you can see positional argument is missing, which is age, right? This is missing. That's why we are getting the error. Now, let's see. I do not want to restrict the user to pass the all the parameter every time. And how or what is the you can see outcome or how can we achieve that things, right? So there is something called you can see default argument. DFAULT default argument. Okay. So by using the default argument, we can achieve that purpose. Okay, that job. So what is default argument again? Default argument is says that you can say we can say it is a optional argument as well, right? Instead of default, we can say optional as well. It says that if you do not want to pass a particular argument, we can set it by default something. Let's say what I do mean. Let's say I'm creating a function, a particular function, and there we can let's say I'll say display city, right? I'm just creating a city, and then I'm say sorry city. I'll be asking for passing the city, and if you want to take a display by default city, let's say I'm saying Mumbai, right? So, and after that, I want to display the city, and I'll say print and city. So this is the function I have created. If you want to create any, you can say by default or you can say optional parameter. Then in that case, you have to define the optional or you can say by default value of this particular parameter. So in case user is not going to pass that city to me, I'll be displaying Mumbai, right? Or whatever the user will be passing, that data I want to print over here. So let me try to use this. Okay. So I'll be calling this particular method, or you can say function, and I'm not going to pass any data over here for now. You can see we are getting output as a Mumbai, right? So in the next line, let's see, I'm once again I'm going to call this particular function, and this time I'm going to pass data as a daily, right? Now if I run this code, you can see if I passing a data to this function, it is printing the data that what I am passing, right? Sorry, it's a daily, not daily, DLHR, right? So I'm getting that output. But if I'm not passing, then I'm getting the default output that what we have defined over there. So this is how we can use the default argument, and this is how it will behave. Okay. So I hope this concept is clear to you guys now how the default argument is behaving and how to use it. Right. Let's talk about scope of variables. Scope of variables. Right. So um, depending on the scope of variable, where there are two mainly two type of variable we have. One is your global variable, another is your local variable, right? Local variable, right? Variable. Okay. So there are two type of variable depending on the scope of variable. Mainly one is your global variable, another is your local variable. Okay. So let's say I'm creating a function over here, and first of all I'm taking a variable. Let's say a is equal to 10, right? I'm taking a simple example. So I'm saying a is equal to 10. And after that, I'm taking writing a method. Let's say if uh, display number. I'm saying display number, right? See, instead of this, and I just want to print a, right? What do you think? What is the output is going to be? So if I run this code now, you can see I'm getting output as 10, right? Because a is defined already. So the value of a is 10. Instead of this method, I'm writing this print a, and after that I'm calling this method. What do you think if I do not call this particular method? What is the output we are going to get? See here, I remove that calling of this method. I define this over here, and I have created a method, and I'm printing over here. Until unless I'm calling this method, I'm not going to get any print from this inside of this, right? Now let's say inside of this, I'm defining once again a is equal to 20, right? A is equal to 20. Now what is the output is going to be? If I run this, it is not going to give me any output, right? But if I call this particular method, let's say display num, I'm going to call it, and I want to print, right, the value. So let me change. Okay. So if I call this particular method, what is the output we are going to get? Can you tell me? So let's say I'm running this. You can see we are getting 20. Now we are not getting 10. What is the reason of behind of it, right? So let's see. I want to change. I want to call this variable or a before we are calling this particular function, right? So what is the output we are going to get right now? So let's see. I want to print something message also. So okay, okay. So the value of a outside of a function that we are going to print first, and after that we are going to call it now, right? So what is the output we are going to get over here? So definitely first this statement will get executed, and after that this one will get executed, right? So when this statement will get executed, the value of a is 10, right? Let me run this code. You can see the value of 10, a is printed as 10, right? After that, when it go inside of this particular method, here it found that value of a is 20, right? And then it is printing a. Now, what do you think if I print after that again this value of a? What is the output we are going to get? What do you think? Because here we have changed the value of a. What is the value of a right now? We have what here is 20. Now we printed a, we got the print is 20, right? Now let's see, after calling this function, we are again going to call this particular value of a. What is the output we are going to get? Let's see. I'm running, and you can see we are still getting the value of a is 10, right? What is the reason behind of it? Because you have to understand one thing. This is something whatever we are writing in outside of a function, that is nothing but my global variable. Okay, this is a global variable, and for now this is my local variable. Clear? This is my local variable. Okay, so this local variable to this its existence of this particular variable inside of this method only. Okay? Inside of this method only. It is not present outside of this. Okay. So here you have to remember one thing, that whenever you are defining one variable inside of a method, that is going to be your local variable. And whenever you're defining a variable outside of your method, that is going to be your global variable. Okay. Now let's say I want to make changes in this particular variable, right? So what we can, or how can we perform that, right? To do so, there is something called global keyword is there. Let's see. I'm going to create a same example. Let's say I'm taking a is equal to 20, 10 I am taking over here, and I'm going to create a method called I'm taking over here, right? So here you can see display now we are creating and we are declaring that a variable as a global, and after that we are making some changes, and this a is equal to 20. For now, let me ask you one question. Let's see, I'm commenting out these two lines, right? So what is the output that we are going to get from this, right? So what is the output? Simply, we are not, you can see, let me remove this one. So we did not call this particular function. So whatever the value of a is already there, that is something we are going to get output, right? If I print this, you can see we are getting a, right? Now let's say I want to call that particular function also, right? When you are calling the particular function, now you can see we are getting the output from inside that a is 20. That is something that we know, right? But now, let's see, this is the line that we called earlier. Now we are going to print this particular check. Now we are going to check the value of a. This value a is coming from the global variable, not from the local inside of this particular function, right? Although we make this particular variable as a global inside of this function, right now we have called this function, so it will go inside of this and it will Here we have marked A as a global, so A already we have there. So it will override the value that we have over here, right? It will change the value. If I now run this code, now you can see the value of A is got changed, right? Initially the value of A was 10. Now we are getting value of A is equal to 20. Now you can see the difference between two code, right? Earlier we were getting 10 and right now we are getting 20 because here we have changed the variable type as a global variable. So this is how, if you are working inside of a function and if you want to uh, use your global variable inside of a function, you want to make some changes, so you can call like this way. I hope this is clear to you guys. Let's talk about something about the return statement in function, right? What is the return statement? So we'll be writing, uh, okay. So what is the use of it? How to use the return, right? So return is not something which is returning by the function, right? So how to use return? Let's say I'm taking a very simple example. I'm saying a div a function, and I'm say, uh, let's say addition, and to perform some addition operation, right? So add, I can understand add numbers, right? So I'll be asking for two number. Let's say number one comma number two, and here you can use the return statement. And what is the return statement you want to perform? Number and one plus number two, right? So what it will do, we have to use the return keyword, and what is the data you are going to return to the function, to the person who is going to call this method, right? What it does, simply from where you are going to call this function, you will be getting the output return back from somewhere, right? It will be if I try to show you over here. Let's see, there is a function def, okay, there is a function called def. Okay, there is a function called def, and you can say num is a function, and you are performing some operation. You are giving a return statement, right? And you are returning something. So what happened? The person who is going to call this particular function, they are going to get some return back to that one, right? So if I create it like this way, this is my you can say function. Okay, this is the function. If I want to call this particular method, what it does, it will return you some data. Okay, that is something apart from by your return statement. Okay, the return statement is going to return back you something. That is something is you can store over here, or you can do anything over from the performance. So here you will be passing, let's say I'm passing two numbers, 10, 20, and this is the function for my addition function. Let's see, this is my addition function. What it will do, uh, it will perform the addition operation, means it will do 10 plus 12, 10 plus 12 is equal to 22. So it will return me back 22. So what I'm going to get from this particular return function, return is going to give me 22, the output of the addition operation. So this is how return works. So let's try to understand that by in the code, right? So if I say this is the function that I have created, now every time I am going to call this particular function, it is going to return me the output. Okay, it is not directly going to print. So let me call this particular function over here. Let's say function print name. I'm passing two number. Let's say 3, 5. Right. If I run this particular code, you can see we are getting an output called 8, right? Because this particular function, this add num, is going to return me the data, and that I'm going to get the print over here, right? So this is how you, next time you are calling this function once again, you are passing some different data, and you are going to get the output. Let's say I'm passing 1 1 comma 5, so we are going to get 16, right? So this is how it works. So with this, we are going to end this video over here, because it is going to get very lengthy video also once again. So in the remaining topics, whatever the pending topics we are left behind, So I'm going to cover those things into our next video. Till then, I hope you got something good learning. And I am closing this video over here. If you have any doubt, confusion, just let me know in the comments, and I'll be happy to reply you. Okay, guys. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.